What's up, folks? Maximilian here, and welcome back to Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, The Online Warrior Season 2, and we're on lucky number 23. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about some experiences I've recently had while playing the game that I usually don't get the luxury of taking place in, and some advice for some players that might have had issues with things along the lines of performing against real opponents as opposed to training mode CPU and stuff like that. So the first bit of topic is going to be strictly talking about the amount of experience I've had playing a game like Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 online versus the offline experience, and covering why each one is really good for the other, and why, if you have the ability to play in either a good online environment or an offline environment, how they can both help you in several ways. I think I might have actually briefly touched up on this in the very beginning seasoned episodes of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 The Online Warrior for the first one. So it's been a couple of years since I've tried to reiterate this, and it's good to let people know what they should be looking forward to if you jump into an online game. So as many people know, Ultimate Marvel 3 is not a game that's on arcade release. A lot of people remember the fact that Street Fighter 4 showed up in many arcades, albeit not many that were around, but it was a huge arcade-dominated type of game. And for the few arcades that were around, Street Fighter 4 was very prevalent, and a lot of people played it, and so many people were trying to get good at it. But Marvel's not the case. It never had an arcade release, so it was all about the people at home trying to get as good as they can as soon as possible. When it came to those situations of trying to find places that you can get good with players or get good with online, the convenience of online is definitely the best part. The saddest part about Marvel is that the online definitely isn't the best of the Capcom games that have come out since then. So what happens now is that you have this perspective of playing in an online environment where your attacks are delayed, and you have to get used to that. You develop this muscle memory around the fact that each one of your button presses is going to be taking about half a second to actually come out, in opposed to the offline environment where things are just crisp and smooth and hit right on the button whenever you press them. This is one of the bigger challenges, and for anybody that doesn't have any plans to play offline anytime soon, I actually recommend that if you are in training mode and you're training your combos, to train under 2 bars. Making the adjustment process between going to an offline environment and an online environment can be pretty challenging sometimes, and it can take you a few games. The reason I'm bringing all this up right now, and why this is a good example, is the fact that I recently went back to the Runback, which is where Wednesday Night Fights is. It's also Super Arcade in Walnut, California. I practically lived there for like a month straight when Street Fighter 4 arcade release was first coming out back in, I believe it was 2007 or 2008. I forget which date it was exactly. Probably 2008. Anyway, back when that happened, I was there all the time, and I really never had the chance to go back, and getting some time off to actually go spend at these tournaments, which run really late into the evening, is sometimes few and far in between, and actually has been very far in between for a really long time. The last evening I went to the Runback was actually the first time I competed in like a competitive Marvel environment for, gosh man, like a really long time. And if anything, I put a lot of my time and resources into playing the game online, and making that adjustment can be really strict. I also had the chance to go to James Chen's place and play against a couple of really notable players like Choi Sauce and P. Gorath, guys that do really well whenever they go to Wednesday Night Fights, and or I'm sorry, the Runback. And it was a really good experience, because it took me like a few games, took me like 4 to 5 games to make the adjustment. Some of the stuff that you will be noticing is your mobility. A lot of the times with characters that have like wave dashes or things that you use to get across and back of the screen really quick, don't just work the same that they do online, because you're used to that muscle memory as far as seeing something on the screen and reacting with your hands. It's different. Like at times I found myself somewhat looking away because I just wanted to get the motion and to get used to my hands feeling what the motion is on an offline environment. You know what I mean? It's a really weird thing to describe, and it's only really makes sense to you guys that actually play the game a lot online and a lot offline, or some offline and a bunch online. But after a few games, I found myself finally getting into the motion, able to get Doom's like up-down dashes, forward and backwards on either side of the screen, finally able to get Dante's really quick box jumps down, and stuff like that. Because it was tough, man. You just get jumping H, and oh my god, this is exactly what I didn't want. Jumping S, oh crap, that's the worst thing that could possibly happen. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. Even some of my friends that have come along that have actually played other online games, that I've spoken with, the guys that were actually here for the Mortal Kombat 9 videos, if you guys have not checked them out, we're talking about how different their experience is because they don't have a really big competitive Mortal Kombat community of folks around where they live, so they play online a lot, and the online in that game is just atrocious. But, like I was saying in bringing this back, there are things that you can take from each one of these. If you play offline, it's pretty much the best way you can go. If you have a community of people that all enjoy playing the same game, and are all passionate about getting good at that game amongst the competition that they have, you're in the gravy boat, dude. There's so much that you can do with those people that you can actually do to get better, and everyone can train new characters, and it's just awesome. If you have 5 to 6 people, it's even better, so you're not training against like the same 1 or 2 people, and you understand how a variety of playstyles really work. That's one of the big things when it comes to competitive level fighting games, is that when you get later on and you actually completely understand how to use all your characters, and you are like a one-to-one copy of the characters you have on the screen, and you can do whatever you want whenever you want and hardly drop combos. That's a huge part, but the next part that takes you to the upper echelon step of being a really good fighting game player is understanding your opposition and taking what you've learned with your characters and making it making it as hard as you possibly can for them to get a win. That stuff is what makes really good high-level competitive fighting gamers really, really profound. How much they can actually learn from their opposition and adapt on the fly. That's stuff that I've never really gotten good with, because how do you get good at that? The answer is practice, by playing a lot of people and understanding how folks actually go about their offense and defense. If they do a couple of things, how they're going to do these things. This is all stuff that really, really lends itself to an offline environment, because you can react fast enough to this stuff. Now let's take this situation online. You're now online. These people, all these folks have different mix-ups and stuff that they've applied in offline environments or online environments, and they're going to be mixing you up like crazy in a game like Ultimate Marvel 3, which is at mid to like high level, nothing but mix-ups. Everything ends up being a mix-up at some point, and you just got to remember what it is, or pray that you're blocking in the right direction. In online, this becomes extremely challenging because of things like the amount of delay between your button presses and your actual joystick movements make this very difficult. This isn't impossible, though. For you guys that grew up in online and actually don't understand what it's like in an offline environment and have no intention of playing offline, like I said, do yourself a huge favor, and if you're going into training, go ahead and train under 2 bars. It's not that much worse. It's actually kind of comparable to just playing on like a big laggy television, you know what I mean? A game like a television that doesn't refresh the screen fast enough. And it's not that bad. I found myself getting used to it quite a bit, and even when I was going back to playing offline recently, it took me about like a few games. It took me like 30 minutes of playing some games, and then I was okay, we're good. My brain has made the adjustment. I can now see what I want to do and like to do, and if I was dropping combos, I was just dropping combos for the sake of which I just drop combos sometimes. I cannot blame the fact that it's online very much past that point. But nonetheless, if you're online, the things that you can take from the online experience versus the offline experience is that you have the wonderful, wonderful ability to be matched up against a huge variety of opponents, and so many people that will have a huge variety of teams and characters. That's actually a commodity that a lot of people don't have, because in many situations in an offline environment, a lot of guys that are super competitive with the game, and we've talked about this in previous episodes of the Online Warrior, flock towards the characters that naturally gravitate towards the higher end of the quote-unquote tier list, or characters that have extremely powerful types of moves, attacks, or strategies that end up really dominating and being very hard to deal with. And those players gravitate towards those characters and mesh them into other teams, or mesh them into teams already full of characters that are really powerful. Hence you see a lot of the same dudes over and over and over again playing very similar teams or small varieties of teams. The nice thing in Marvel is that it's not like Marvel 2 where it's only 5 characters. It's like about 10 to 15 characters that are actually really viable in a tournament. Nonetheless, what happens is those guys sometimes lose to crazy weird things that they're just not ready for. The nice thing is that when you're at a higher level, you learn to shut down everything. Like this level of competition that you've come to, no matter what you run into, your strategy applies to all. Like some characters, you might have to switch it up a little bit, you know? You have to like change your game plan sometimes, like against the Hulk or against Haggard. You gotta respect the pipe, you gotta respect the armor. But most of the time, these strategies that these high-level players gravitate towards just take care of everything. And even if you have a lot of that knowledge and experience, especially from playing online a lot, it can really help, especially if you're switching to an offline environment. Like, I was running into a couple of guys that are using crazy characters like Rocket Raccoon and just completely blew me up. I had no idea. I was never expecting that many instant overheads and stuff like that. It's just, you need to understand where you need to not be in those moments of fighting those characters. So that's something to really take from online, is the fact that the character knowledge and experience that you will acquire while playing games in an online environment is extremely valuable. In fact, it actually helped me so much that one of the previous games that I played online a lot, in one of the worst online environments you could possibly play, which was the original Xbox, was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. That game was online on Xbox One, and I put so much time into that game, guys, that you would not even believe. And that's where I actually learned a lot of my matchup experience, and parrying timing was from playing Third Strike online. And even for the most part, with things that require some pretty sensitive inputs, like Doom's TAC swag combos and stuff like that, those things require pretty sensitive timing because you actually have to change them depending on the size of the character you are attacking. And it's rough, dude. It's really rough. Like, I found those to be actually more difficult in an offline environment than I did in an online environment because I just have not practiced them offline. And there's so many inputs in that combo that it just became more difficult and more difficult the more I tried to adjust myself. So what I'm trying to get at is that offline is not completely useless. Marvel 3's online can definitely be much, much worse. It could be like level of like King of Fighters 13 or like Mortal Kombat 9 levels of really damn laggy, and the game just can't handle connections from a long distance. But it does a fairly good job. You can run into dudes from the west coast to the east coast of the United States, or even across from like East Coast over the Atlantic Ocean to like Europe and Britain and stuff like that. And it actually runs pretty well from what I understand if both players have a good connection. What you guys can do, and one thing I completely recommend that you should do if you're looking for competition, is take advantage of the resources that are available to you. For you guys that really are just sick of online and you don't want to deal with all this crazy stuff, or you just want to experience what Marvel 3 is like playing in an offline environment against real people, I would highly recommend it, and it's actually something that gives me a lot more faith in the game. Like I said, I think I might have mentioned this before, when I get to play Ultimate Marvel 3 against real people, no matter how good the skill grade of them, I find it an absolute pleasure. Like, it feels just like a completely different game, and you're able to do things that you like think on the fly, and they actually work because the button presses are one-to-one synced up with what you're doing right now. It's an amazing feeling to actually go up against real opposition, because playing a CPU in an offline environment will get you absolutely nowhere. A lot of folks ask me, like, should I play like the highest level CPU to get good at fighting games? Guys, no. No, don't do that. You're playing a computer, something that reacts to your every single button press as you press it. It'll just mess you up when you play against real people. Trust me on this one. Nonetheless, what you guys can do to get some resources available to you is check out certain websites. Shoryuken.com has always been a really good resource to checking out like regional matchmaking, and within the forums they have this. You can actually search your region within the US and I think other countries as well, and find which areas of yours have like casuals. And a lot of these guys are pretty nice most of the time, depending if they're hosting a tournament or if they're hosting just like casuals at somebody's house, or they have like weekly tournaments or things like that. I've actually found quite a few every once in a while when I do go back and check this. I remember back in Vanilla, I found a couple of friends where I used to live, and yeah, I played Marvel 3 a whole bunch, and it was really damn fun. What you guys can do is check that one out, because that's really resourceful if you're looking for people to fight in an offline environment. But if you're looking for people to fight online, and you're looking for those folks that have good connections, and you want to consistently fight against people that, you know, have good connections or used crazy teams, or if you come across someone you need really good practice with and they're not like a total butthead or something like that, and they're not teabagging you like crazy, then you can actually check out something like the, I believe it's called the Fight Tracker on eventhubs.com. This is amazing for online competition, for finding people local and people that play the same games you might online. You can actually go to their website, and if you click the Fight Tracker, you'll find a little database that categorizes several players that have already registered on their site, and what games they play, and what region they're in, and how good they are. And you can essentially pair yourself up with these folks, send them a message, and be like, hey dude, I don't have any experience with this dude, if you'd like to play some games, it'll help me out a lot. What's lovely is that things like player matches in Ultimate Marvel 3 finally have the ability for you to just rematch guys over and over again, which is why I love doing it in things like the random week of and stuff like that. So take advantage of that stuff, guys. If you're really looking forward to actually getting better in an offline environment, check out shoryuken.com. If you don't have the resources to find people in local tournaments or things like that, go to event hubs and find people that actually have a variety of characters if you're really interested in actually getting better at these games. Because when it comes to both of these games, a lot of the reasons a lot of people like to become really good is to become popular. That has never actually been my my ultimate goal by any means. It's just really weird that it kind of happened this way of quote-unquote being internet popular. But a lot of people really like that. A lot of people like the attention, and that's what I really wanted when I was getting good at fighting games. I just wanted to look awesome and to have people think it looked awesome. You know, when you see something like the Daigo Parry video, that was a huge inspiration to me because this huge crowd gets up and gets all excited, and it's like that is amazing. That's an amazing feeling to have people actually excited for you when you're performing something, you know what I mean? That's what I kind of always thought fighting games as, or video games, or even in the arcades and stuff like that. I really enjoyed being in an arcade and having a crowd of people around you watching you do something totally freaking awesome and unexpected and no one has ever seen it before. And that's what you can actually do now with Ultimate Marvel 3 and with a lot of folks online that have these strategies and this stuff that I usually don't see. I like to make a highlight of it. I like to actually show them in videos, show them their crazy characters winning or losing, or me going up against them a few matches or something like that. The struggles and the positive moments of using these awkward characters is something that I think is really awesome to celebrate and show off, which is why I've done things with like Master Doom Man, as well as a lot of other dudes in offline environments that usually do really well, like Justin Wong and Filipino Champ and stuff like that, to get you guys to understand what makes these players so good and why it's really fun to watch them. So there is a reason for you to stick it out in online if you guys have not played offline, because a lot of the reasons that people play in offline environments and online environments are for the same thing. They kind of just want people to watch what they're doing and to appreciate the time that they've spent into making themselves so good with these characters and so good at the game they love. Or you really want the money and you're going to go after those offline tournaments and win that prize pool. So whatever your motivation is, there's something for you in both ranges. So hopefully you guys got something out of this video. If you're looking for some more Ultimate Marvel 3 action, I've been hosting a week of all random on PlayStation 3, essentially all random selected characters and assists against other people using all random as well. And it's actually a really fun way of learning other characters without like the really serious environment of running through like ranked and stuff like that. It's pretty enjoyable, and I actually found myself learning a lot at the end of every time I've done one of these random week ofs. You can check that out in the videos section below, but until next time, my name is Maximilian, and I'll see you guys later.